2026 sees me travel the length and breadth of England to run a marathon per week in each of its 39 historic counties. Why? To raise funds for Tommy's, the charity that does incredible work to try to end the heartbreak of baby loss. I'll be joined each week by someone who has their own story of loss, their own rollercoaster journey, their own reason to be there. This podcast shares those stories in the hope that they can bring awareness to an often undiscussed topic and even, perhaps, a flicker of light in someone's darkness. You can follow the runs, the stories, and donate to the cause at marathonsformiracles.com. Enjoy. Hello, welcome to another episode of Marathons for Miracles. We're into week 3, flying along, and this week we are very, very pleased to be joined by Adz. Hello.
Evening, Olly. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. Great to have you on. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, Adz, because from all the interactions we've had up until now, you've got some cracking stories and a really interesting background, as well as a fantastic reason to be running with us and just some incredible running stories as well. So we're going to try and pack in as much as we can in the time that we've got. Yeah, thanks so much. As ever, I say this to everyone, thanks so much for being involved in what we're doing in the first place. Scraping together that our motley crew has not been the easiest task over the last 6 months, but you were very quick off the mark and a very willing volunteer, and you've been a great part of the team up until now with just your interactions in the group and your enthusiasm for what we're doing. So I'll begin by just thanking you for that. It's great to have you on board.
Well, thanks for having me on board. I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good fun. So we'll start as ever with just a bit of an introduction, and can you sort of start by telling us what's led you to be involved with Marathons for Miracles?
A number of reasons. Obviously, I had a conversation with your mom, and she mentioned that you were raising money for Tommy's, and that your good wife had a hard time with your first pregnancy, and the story kind of resonated with me because obviously I didn't exactly have the best starts of life, and I've always lived my life in making sure that I strive to help others to ease their suffering and their burdens by doing challenging events to raise, much needed funds to help others. But also in my own life, my ex-wife and I, we suffered a miscarriage, and at the time, blokes didn't talk, and there was not much support for blokes who've gone through, whose partner has sadly, tragically gone through a miscarriage or a loss of a baby. And I suppose as blokes, we just got to get on with it and just crack on, normal jogging. And that obviously plays on the mind and it knocks you back and back and back. And being able to help somebody else not go through all the pain and the trauma that I've gone through is more
amazing. Yeah, there's you're already touching on a lot of topics there that we see crop up quite often around this topic, and particularly with men, and we'll certainly touch on some of those a bit more. If you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit more about the circumstances surrounding your and your wife at the time's loss?
I can't remember how far into the second trimester Maria was, but I was actually in the army and I was away on an operational tour when I was called and told that I was to pack my kit because I was going back to the UK because my wife was in hospital, and that's all I was told. So still like in a deepest, darkest whole world of hurt, because your immediate, as a man, your immediate reaction is to protect your family, to provide, to be that support. And sadly, I wasn't there. But by the time I got back home, Maria had gone through surgery, and she was in the, I can use this word, this term quite loosely, the clearing up had been done, and Maria had to face it on her own, and I wasn't there. And it's nailed me. It proper put me on my backside. And whilst I can't remember a lot about that brief hour and a half, I think the biggest thing for me was like, right, you can go home now, take your wife home, and if there's any problems, dial 999 or bring it back here. Yeah. And it was as clear cut as that. But I think one of the things that still haunts me to this day is actually going home to my own house to change. Our son, he wasn't even a year old, and he was asleep in his cot. And I went in, saw him, he was asleep. Picture was pretty much haunted me pretty much all my life, to the point of where he was growing up. I could never go into his room while he was asleep. But, at that time, men's mental health wasn't discussed. And whilst there was a lot of support for Maria, there's very little support for the bloke. And given my career, given the nature of my job, I was home, and then I was gone again. That's sadly the nature of the beast. That's sort of like 48 hours caused a massive, massive wedge between Maria and I. And through no one's fault, we just didn't discuss the effects it had on her or me until later on in my career. We're talking years later, when I was told, look, if you're struggling, go and speak to Padre. Well, I'm going to do me, right? I go and speak to Padre, and the Padre said, well, I can't really help you. And I just like, right, solid, I'll just go back to you to do what I'm good at, and that's going and, defending and helping, defending our country. So I just threw myself into, and, it's years later when you have to kind of like surgically and forensically go through each screen and all of that. And it causes a lot of questions, and it causes a lot of, okay, so that's that. That's because of, all right, so things slowly start to make up. But I think one of the things that motivated me to be on this challenge is to, I suppose, break that taboo, talk about my feelings, and
all good.
Basically pass on to blokes that it's okay to talk about it, and please don't make the mistakes I did by burying my head in the sand and grafting like a man possessed, because it gets you nowhere.
Thank you for sharing that. My immediate question is, and I think I know the answer. Firstly, how long ago did this happen? How long ago did your loss occur?
1996.
96. So about just nearly 30 years ago.
Yeah.
How many times since then have you had that conversation to that extent, if ever?
Twice.
I feel so privileged that you've had that conversation with me, Adz, and I really do appreciate it. And I think this gets to the essence of why we're doing what we're doing. Yes, it's running, and yes, it's fundraising, but it's conversations like this and the impact that they can have that are really the key driver for me of why we're doing this, and why I didn't just go and run one marathon and do some fundraising, because that's just me and my story. If we could find a way to bring more people together and share more stories and share those lessons learned over that time period, and that bulk of sort of 39 people's experience rather than just one, that's where the power of this comes in. And yeah, like I say, feel a real privilege that you're happy to speak to me about it. So thank you. Just straight off the bat, there's so much in there to unpick, and I'd love to just follow up on a few points that you mentioned. You mentioned the image of your son asleep and how that sort of haunted you ever since. He was healthy and well at the time and fast asleep, and as babies often are in these scenarios, completely oblivious to blissfully ignorant of what's going on around them. Why does that image of your son who was fine haunt you, do you think?
It it boils down to a personal, I suppose, value and standard. My role um was to be the provider, to be the protector, to be there, to be the supporter, the guide. And at that moment in time, like you say, he was oblivious. He didn't know what was going on. I took it personally that I failed my family, that I failed to be there for when Maria became unwell and needed to go to hospital. Um, I failed in my duty to basically my marital vows, through sickness and health and all that type of thing. And it was not my fault. It wasn't my fault. But whilst I agree with that, because of my own personal values and standards, it's caused me to sort of like in a way become a workaholic.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is well, I failed my family in one area. I know I can't fail them in another, and that is just work, work, work.
So that
It,
image
it,
image of your son, sort of, it's an association thing. You associate that snapshot mental picture with that period, that brief period, as you said, just that sort of 48 hours that you were home, but that period of time and everything that was going on in your head, in your life, in your family, in that couple of days.
yeah, I saw it as a failing. I failed my family. I failed my wife, and it's massive. Um,
This is what comes up with this topic so often.
because as a man, if you take the machoism out of it and all that type of thing, you're the provider, you're the protector. You subconsciously do it, and now you just that's. I wouldn't say it's not what's instilled in you, but I suppose society does. It forms that little bit of a mindset. You know it when they do this, you don't need anything else. And because of my background, loyalty and protecting and all that type of thing, and, my wife becomes ill and miscarriages. I wasn't there for them, and that's what caused me on the failure. I failed them because I wasn't there at that crucial point that day or that part of their life. So yeah, it's a hard one.
That is a hard one. From what I've seen of you, Ads, to now I don't see you as a failure at all. And some of the stuff you've done in your career is it, and that's also part of providing for a family and that male role. So there's some such huge conflicts there. But the one thing that stands out for me, relating to sort of what our focus is I think there's a part of the taboo that you mentioned is there can be an attitude in society that, oh, it's just a miscarriage. I don't think the impact, both physically and subsequently psychologically, of what a miscarriage is understood in the slightest in our society. And, I think people think it's a case of a bit of heavy bleeding. Okay, you're not pregnant anymore. Off you go. Try again. Better luck next time.
Yeah.
Being very much oversimplifying the model, but I think that's often the attitude that you see. To hear you talk about it in the way that you have, it's not that at all. It's a real earth-shattering, foundation shaking event. And I think it's important to have these conversations for people to realize that is the case, and it's not just.
I've since had a conversation with Maria, in the lead up to this conversation, and I asked her, how is she with it? And she's like, it's with me every day. But what I was told to do is to think of a name and put a name to the baby. Now, you don't know what sex it was. Go with a gut instinct and put a name to it. Now, Maria's, named the baby, called it Sebastian, and she said that brought a lot more comfort than the time from miscarriage till that period at the moment. And just like saying, it's almost over 30 years. And I think in all the time that we were together, we only spoke once about it. And it's like if I can use this example, if somebody at work is suddenly diagnosed with cancer, nobody knows how to talk to the person. They don't know what to say. The actual uh, person diagnosed with the disease doesn't know how to react to people. It's like a hotcake. The same thing is with the miscarriage. You just don't know how to talk about it.
Yeah.
Do you? Don't you?
Yeah.
You don't have to open a wound or whatever. So I think it's if you can look at breaking that little bit of a stigma,
Yeah.
and it becomes so much easier.
Was that the naming point? Was that something that was mentioned to her by a midwife, or was it sort of a
Counselor.
counselling? It was.
No, a counselor. Yeah, and we're talking years after the event. She went for counselling. But yeah, no. So that was years later after counselling.
So that was obviously a pretty effective process for her. The counselling has done a lot to help.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that you went to see the padre through the army, and they weren't much use. Was there any other? Have you sought any other support with it since, or do you see that there was much available, or has it been a bit of a crack on get on with it?
It's what took a bit of a breakdown, and everyone's working with various mental health organisations. Because obviously I was back in 2014, I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, and that's part of my childhood, but added, exacerbated and added to by my army career. I had a bit of I fell off the wagon. I just completely cleaned in, and I had counselling with, I went for counselling, and this is where the counsellor went to great lengths to get through to me. It wasn't your fault, and it's easier said than done to accept that it wasn't my fault. And it's slowly sinking in. It wasn't my fault. Situations and circumstances. But again,
And do you think that same logic applies to the miscarriage? Is that all part of the bigger picture for you, do you think?
that's a small percentage of it.
Sure.
But obviously, will be. Yeah, coming to terms with it wasn't your fault. You didn't let your family down. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. Now, when you dissect everything, as I do, it still comes down to your individual values and standards. And yeah, it wasn't our fault. It happened. But one thing that really, really lifts my butt cheeks is when people say it is what it is.
Yeah.
For me, that is a very, very venomous and inflammatory comment, a bit defeatist.
I think it's something. It goes back to what you were. I think it goes back to what you were saying before about. I think it is what it is something that people say when they don't know what else to say.
Yeah,
it's sort of this is just a way to fill the space. I think if you're saying it is what it is about your own circumstances, fine. Again, you're probably saying that because you don't want to dig deeper into what it actually is.
Yeah.
But from someone else, a very unhelpful phrase. I agree with you on that. And venomous as well, as you said, is a good description of it. And that blame thing as well I saw it with Amy, and it crops up with everyone I talk to about loss. And it's impossible to avoid blaming yourself in some way, shape or form. I think particularly for women, because there's a literal sort of physical custody and responsibility there.
Yeah.
But equally for men, you're naturally, as you say, could I have done something to, did I let her lift something that she shouldn't have lifted, or all these things that you're advised not to do during pregnancy? And ultimately, that was the one bit of messaging that we did get quite successfully from our hospital, and they were we were at Cambridge, in Cambridge at the time, and they were very thorough in sort of the aftercare, and not just the physical aftercare, but the explaining what had happened and investigating what had happened, and giving us as many answers as we could. And ultimately the answer was, look, we don't know why you've lost this baby. It is one of those things. I won't say it is what it is. They weren't as glib as that, but there wasn't anything you could have done. This one wasn't one to be. There's nothing wrong with you. There's no reason that you'll have any issues going forwards. It's just on this occasion, it didn't work out. And they were very good at hammering home that message. And particularly for Amy, I think it was very helpful for her to know that, it wasn't her fault. You mentioned about sort of the time that you had. You had just that sort of 48-hour period that you were home. And I appreciate that's a stress of the job, and will be a stress for a lot of people in the armed forces outside of, in many different circumstances. Do you think the lack of time initially when you were home, when the loss was happening, do you think that because you didn't really have time to process and talk with Maria then, do you think by the time you had sort of the next opportunity, it was almost like, well, the time's passed now, and the longer it went without being discussed, the harder it became?
Had the midwife, the hospital staff actually explained things a bit more, and actually, I think that the follow up, there was obviously the gynae follow up appointments for Maria, but there was no sort of like follow ups for the night to. I want to say there was no bereavement follow up, if I can use that term. Had there been sort of like questions and answers at the time, instead of, right, you can take her home now, she's ready to go home, it was that, okay, fine, right, I'm a medic, yeah, okay, and then let's just back on. But I think had there been time and opportunity for grieving or talking about things, I think that perhaps might have made stuff, your life a little bit easier in that brief time that I had before I went back on the ago. So I think, at that time it wasn't the done thing. It was like, we won. So yeah.
And you say that it sort of drove a wedge between you and your wife. Do you think that was ever unwedged? Have you had conversations since that you've been able to unpick that time, or?
It was the start of where the wheels started wobbling. And a couple of years later, when we realised that we had grown apart, and then it was, I just threw my weight into work, and it was the start of that. Yeah, we didn't talk for whatever reasons. Personally, we just didn't talk. It was, I had my own, call it demons or whatever it is, where I failed. I just, put myself into work. Where dealt with it in their own way. Had we have spoken, perhaps it might have been a different outcome. But definitely know that as a couple, we didn't talk about it.
Again, I'm sorry to hear how it's all transpired, and again, just thank you for sharing. And it's, if I can reiterate the point I made earlier to anyone who's listening, if ever you are under the illusion that miscarriages are not a major life event and have major impacts, then what more do they need to hear? Tommy's as an organisation was set up in early 90s, 92, I think. So by the time you and Maria were experiencing your miscarriage, they were still very, very early days. I've felt very fortunate when Amy and I were experiencing our loss a couple of years ago, that the people like Tommy's were around, and the resources that they have available on the website and through the midwife lines and everything else that Tommy's do and provide is a fantastic source of information, which, as you say, just being able to sit and read and learn what happened and what might have caused things and what you need to know moving forwards is a real comfort. So, and Tommy's is one of many, many fantastic organizations that are there to help people. What do you think could have existed, or you could have done at the time that perhaps wasn't around, that would have been a help? Looking back, what would have been the best thing to have helped you to cope with that situation?
So I think what would have helped is information. Now, like I say, I don't remember very, very much of it. Maria might have well been given a leaflet or information. I don't know. But I think if I was to go through that period again, I think what would have been very, very helpful is a referral to an organization like Tommy's. Tommy falls when you, right, in a sense, least expect it, but it's a welcome call. I think had there been not at I'm at no stage will I ever blame the hospital because stuff evolves and all that type of thing. Things change and things get better and better as we go along. But I think had you have had a follow-up appointment, a follow-up call, perhaps things might have been easier. It could have been a better outcome.
And talking about blokes and how we deal with things and that we don't talk about things, is there a different approach you might have taken from that perspective?
I'm going to say yes. I think had I been able to have perhaps spoken about things, maybe not at the time, maybe a year or so down the road, be able to look. There's my number. If you need me, give me a call. So when my wheels started wobbling, my little work hard, I could have pulled in and been able to plug into supporting that. But that it's not that I buried my head in the sand. I just, in a sense, took it on the chin and just cracked on as how I knew best, which was just to work, just work harder. And yeah, so that's all I did. I reverted to what and I knew was work harder.
And I guess being in the military world, in a number of ways, vulnerabilities are a weakness, whether they be physical or mental. So I guess you're living in a world where you don't want to show those vulnerabilities.
Yeah, you don't. Not like that, particularly with me, with the way I was going with my career. There's no way that I wanted to allow that to impede my progression.
So with your career, obviously the armed forces is a service. Like it's very much a service driven career, and obviously you're a medic within the armed forces, so you're looking after people. You're looking after people who are looking after people. There's obviously a real service driven side to you, and you mentioned at the start of sort of your motivations for getting involved in us is helping others to achieve their goals. Do you think that comes from is that therapy for you?
Yeah, helping others takes my mind off my own wounds and allows me to concentrate on somebody else. And it's not it's a mind block. It's a block. Whilst I'm concentrating on helping others, it takes my own mental spotlight off me and allows me to focus on somebody else up in the line. So, but then, there's that old cliche, how can you help somebody else when you need help or when you struggle? Well, helping others helps me move forward.
There you go. And what a fantastic way to go about it. Should we talk about running?
Yeah, can do.
You've done a bit of running in your time, Ad. part of the reason why you were on week 3 is because by the time we were piecing the schedule together, I was looking at people who I could go, I don't need to worry about whether or not they've got enough time to train between now and when we're running. And given your background, that wasn't an issue. What do you get up to? What you've done a few very cool things that I'd love to hear a bit more about.
I'm injured, so training has been it's been difficult. So I think on the day it's just going to be slow and just put one foot in front of the other and keep going.
Yeah.
It's the stuff I've done. Most of the stuff I've done is obviously for the personal challenge or either raising funds. My first sort of like ultramarathon I did was out in Jordan back in 2018. I started my race at 24 degrees Celsius at 6 in the morning. And when I finished 6 hours later, it was 56 Celsius. So yeah, it was Red Raw, very Red Raw. And that was that wasn't for charity. That was just something to do, a challenge, something to train. I'd say, I've been very, very blessed to have been provided opportunities to go and do, mad challenging stuff. I think my first my first ever endurance event was on 14, but that was a cycle ride. I cycled nearly 125 miles I would say in one go, but in a day.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the longer the better. I think my most memorable thing for charity was back in 2024 when I ran 76 kilometers, basically from Aldershot to Portsmouth.
Mm-hmm.
And I raised money for combat stress. That was hard work. It was all mental. The mind. Running is therapy. I've had some phenomenal debates. I've had some phenomenal arguments with politicians, all sorts of things. I've had some phenomenal times.
Debates with politicians whilst running.
In my head, yeah.
Oh, I see.
I've worked out wonderful ways of teaching the current political parties a lesson. Teach them a little bit of humility and listen to people. I've
just gives you that headspace.
It's
work it all out.
Yeah, it's healthy. Yeah, no, it's great. And I'm going to say it's a little bit addictive because
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, you complete one challenge and you go, I'm not doing that again. Right, what's next?
Yeah.
So yeah,
luckily my wife is versed in the addiction as well, in that we'll have some evenings where I'm clearly just being a bit of an arsehole and she'll go, can you just go for a run now, please? And I go, oh, okay. And then half an hour later, come back and, right, good, we'll carry on now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's healthy. And obviously it's, you're challenging your mind because it's mental all the time. I can't be bothered. No, I've got to go. I can't be bothered. I've got to go. You're injured. Oh, so I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's all good, all healthy.
Yeah. So our run in a couple of weeks is just a park run, really, for you, a marathon.
I wouldn't say a park run. It's going to be sweat. No, I mean, it's, everybody goes, oh, you're so fit, you've done this, you've done that. Well, yeah, possibly, but each event is new, it's different, challenging, and you might run the same route over and over again, but every time that you run it, you see something different.
Yeah.
So something else pops up, or something new pops up, or whatever. So yeah, no, it's I'm not going to say it's going to be a walk in the park, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. It's going to be a good day out. We've got a cracking route planned. You perhaps note from Adz's accent that he's not an English original. Where do you hail from, Adz?
I'm originally from Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. I'm a mountain boy. I was born in the mountain regions of Zimbabwe in the Eastern Highlands. And, yeah, like I said, I've been blessed to have done quite a lot of adventures in my own country and abroad.
Yeah. And you came to England.
Came to England back in 1992, and that was partially due to the start of the early phases of the land grab.
Yeah.
I came over to join the army, and I did just that. And
Yeah.
yeah, the rest is history, as I say.
Yeah. And because of that, ads became a bit of a cheat code for me when I was putting the schedule together, because we've got ads is running the Rutland leg with us, and Rutland is not a big county. There's a lot of fields in it, and trying to find someone to fill the fill that leg was proving tricky. So when ads got in touch and said I'd love to be involved, I said, well, you're from Zim, so we'll just pick one. We'll pick one that I'm struggling with. But I hope everyone listening will agree that just for the stories that you've shared this evening, it's well worth having got you involved, and I'm really grateful of that. And for your running experience as well. I think we're going to have a great day out. We've got a really nice route planned, looking to start in Uppingham, which I don't think I've mentioned this to you ads actually yet, but I'm my mum's uncle, who was very dear to me and sadly passed away a couple of years ago, was a housemaster at one of the houses at Uppingham School for a number of years. So there's long family history at Uppingham. And so I think we're going to start there at his old schoolhouse, and then we'll run down and do a lap of Rutland Water. And funnily enough, we finish at the pub. It's convenient. It's bizarre how often running routes finish at pubs. It must be just...
the whole profession says little and often. So, I mean, little and often. Every mile I have a pint. Oh, well.
That would make it more of a challenge. Yeah, no, it's going to be a great day. I'm really looking forward to it. And again, I can't thank you enough for your generosity with your thoughts this evening. Yeah, I think we're going to have a good week.
Yeah, I think, the whole, 39 weeks is going to be a very, very emotive and a very supportive 39 weeks. Even I think, just by conversations we've had now, if we could, we'd all be running every leg. But sadly, we can't for whatever reasons. So yeah, I mean, it's really nice to see the team cohesiveness and then the encouragement and the dedication. I think the willingness to step in and help somebody who's struggling, and I think also as well as I think you and Amy, you're not afraid to shout out, listen, those you need some assistance. And I think sometimes, you need that type of relationship where it doesn't matter whether you're the lead man or you're just a supporter. It's having that ability to go, hold on, folks, I'm drowning here, or folks, shut up, I need to think. So yeah, no, I mean, I'm certainly looking forward to it. Yeah, but it'd be good. It'd be long and
yeah, it'd be a good day out. Ads, thanks very much. Look forward to seeing you in Rutland very soon, and we'll speak again.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's been great.